Do you sometimes feel like you'll never get out of debt? Can you imagine the feeling of being debt-free? How about getting out of debt and staying out of debt? In today's episode, we will discuss this and more with financial coach Tracy Latona. Welcome to the Jesus People Sisterhood podcast, a place where Christian single women aged 50 plus connect. I am your host, Janine Jordan, a Christian confidence coach and leadership mentor in Alberta, Canada.
And I'm your co-host, Ellie McCormick, a Christian longevity coach and mentor in the USA. Being single women over 50, we know what it's like to feel overlooked, to have unrealized dreams, to experience the challenges of singlehood, and to be concerned about what our future will look like. We couldn't find anything online for single Christian women over 50, so we created Jesus People Sisterhood just for you, a place where sisters encourage and empower one another through the last third of life, because you are a treasure trove of wisdom and of exceedingly great value. This is an authentic community, a supportive family, with other women on the same journey where Jesus is the center of it all. Here you will find real talk, real community, and real sisters.
Join us as we discuss building relationships, whole health, and growing spiritually. We'll review helpful books and articles, chat with guest speakers, share success stories, and have some laughs along the way. So grab your favorite beverage and we'll get started. Welcome, sisters, to this episode of the Jesus People Sisterhood podcast, the only podcast specifically for single Christian women over 50. Today, we give a shout out to our sisters in India. Thank you for listening. In today's episode, we'll be speaking with our returning guest, financial coach Tracy Latona. Tracy will be sharing about how to get out of debt and stay out.
But first, we have a few new things to tell you about. As you may know, we share contact information for ourselves and our guests, as well as links to articles, videos, and books mentioned or reviewed in each episode. We're excited to announce that we now have affiliate links for books purchased through the links in our show notes. We are blessed to provide this podcast to you for free, but it does cost us to produce Jesus People Sisterhood episodes. It would be a great blessing to us if you decide to buy a book mentioned in this podcast, that you purchase it through our show notes link. We are also excited to tell you about a new feature we'll be doing at Jesus People Sisterhood. We want to get to know our listeners, and we want our listeners to get to know each other, and so we'll be doing listener spotlight episodes. If you would like to share your testimony or what the Lord is doing in your life currently, please contact us at support@jesuspeoplesisterhood.com. We would love to have our listeners come and share with the sisterhood. And now, let's get to today's interview.
Tracy Latona is a financial coach who went from living paycheck to paycheck with her husband and getting divorced due to money and communication. God restored their marriage and they decided to do things differently, including how they work together with their finances. Now they're debt-free, stop the scarcity mentality, and have an abundance mindset. She took her experience in financial coach training and opened her business, where she guides Christians to manage their money with confidence and grow their mindset and bank account to live generously and stop money stress. Welcome back to the podcast, Tracy. We're pleased to have you with us again.
Thank you so much for having me back. It is such a joy and an honor to be here. Yay!
And we're here to talk about our finances. Yay.
That was just such an excited yay.
Well, it's exciting and then it's not exciting. And I think all of us have, we have different emotions around our finances.
Right.
Certainly.
So, well, thank you for being with us today. And thank you for coming back, being willing to come back to the podcast as we discuss how to get out of debt and stay out of debt.
Yeah, let's do it.
So please tell our listeners a little bit more about you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Tracy Latona, and I am the founder and financial coach for Golden Rose Financial Coaching, where I guide Christians to manage their money with confidence and grow their mindsets and bank accounts so they can live generously and stop money stress. And my husband and I have a restored marriage where we were divorced and got remarried, and money and communication was a huge, huge part of that. So, what I get to do is help people learn to really become a good steward of the resources that God has given them, learn what the Bible actually says about money, and then also provide the practical side of money, like the budgeting and the plan to get out of debt and build wealth and all that stuff. And then also the emotional and identity shifts that need to happen to actually have your bank account grow and build that wealth and become the steward that God is calling you to be.
Wonderful. So I get to ask the first question, but I have another one as well. So it's two-part. So number one is, why is getting out of debt a good thing? And the second piece is, and is having debt ever a good thing?
That is like a loaded question, and I absolutely love it. So I'll answer the second question first. Is debt ever a good thing? Honestly, it all depends on your personal relationship to debt. Now, what I like to do is I like to point people to what the Bible says. The Bible says in Proverbs 22:7, the rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is a slave to the lender. And also in Romans chapter 13, verse 8, it references, let there be no debt remaining outstanding among you except the debt of brotherly love. The Bible has nothing good to say about debt, but it also doesn't say that it's a sin to have debt either. So, what was your first question?
Why is getting out of debt a good thing?
Thank you for reminding me. So, getting out of debt is so good on so many levels. And this in and of itself could be an entire podcast, but I'll keep it brief. When we owe somebody, I'll talk about the emotional piece first. When we owe somebody, especially something that is so intimate to our minds, our energy, like we have blood, sweat, and tears that go into earning this paycheck. And when that paycheck goes for past purchases to somebody that we owe, there's a weight that is put on our shoulders, on our minds. Our nervous system gets activated because it doesn't feel safe. That's why when people become debt free, it's like, whew, I feel like this huge weight just lifted off of my shoulders because they're finally free. They don't have that weight bearing down on them anymore. And the other reason why it's so good to become debt free is because you're ultimately giving away your present money for past purchases or past choices, which is robbing you of your future. As Dave Ramsey says, your biggest wealth building tool is your income. And when you're giving your income away in debt payments, you are essentially just creating this vicious cycle of living paycheck to paycheck and feeling broke, even though you might not be. You might be making a great income, or maybe you don't have a great income. But either way, picture all of that money that goes out in debt, that car payment, those student loan payments that are picking up back here on May the 5th here in the United States, those Costco and Target credit cards, all of that money that you pay out, imagine being able to keep and have that work for you in your present and your future. How amazing would that feel?
Can I go back just to the second question again?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So I was just thinking, I was told to build credit, it was good to have something placed on like layaway and then pay a certain amount and pay it on time. And so is that a good, like a couch? I bought a couch,
Yeah.
So, and actually a set. And so I did that over the year, and yes, it improved my credit rating. Is there something there?
I love, 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 love this question. So this is my personal thoughts and opinions about like building credit and all that, because I was taught growing up too, like you need to have a good credit score so that way you can save money on interest and you can have big purchases, and in case something hits the fan and life happens and you have an emergency, then you can get a loan or borrow debt, and the credit is going to be the thing that allows you to get it. But here's the thing about credit. The thing about credit is that it is designed to make banks rich, not you. The whole point of the credit system is to determine how good you are at paying back debt. And the only way to build a credit score is to take on debt. So the credit system is built on 5 things. I'll just take this quick rabbit trail. It's based off of how much debt you have, your debt to income ratio. It's based off of the types of debt you have, whether it's revolving like a credit card or if it's fixed like a car payment. It is dependent on how well you pay back your minimum payments. And it's also based off of, oh my gosh, my brain. Do you make your payments on time? Mm-hmm. Or are you late? And then it's also based off of, the gist of it is it's all based off debt. It's all based off of the bank systems and all of that. And it's designed to keep you in the cyclical phase of borrowing and paying back and borrowing and paying back. And the thing about credit is you actually don't need a credit score to live life. You can actually purchase a house without a credit score. It's a process called manual underwriting. You can purchase a car without credit by saving up and paying cash for a beater with a heater, and then saving up and then trading in every so often to get the car that you finally want. The American system has us so, I'm just going to say it, I'm going to sound like a conspiracy theorist here, brainwashed to believe that we need a credit score when actually we really don't.
Now, Tracy, does that go for the Canadian system too then?
I am not sure about the Canadian system. I am not well acquainted with the Canadian system. But I mean, in America, we have manual underwriting for mortgages and whatnot. So I'm sure that we could do a quick Google search and see if that's a thing for Canada too. But ultimately, you can live debt free. You don't have to have debt be part of your life.
Right. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Okay, so what mistakes do people make trying to get out of debt that hinders their progress?
Great question. So I see a lot of people making these mistakes that they feel are like really good ideas at the time, but it actually hurts them. And the first thing is not having a clear plan. And by not having a clear plan, it's one thing to be like, oh, I want to get out of debt. And then like you put an extra $20 here on this card, an extra $100 here over on this thing. But if you don't know exactly what your strategy is going to be to get out of debt, you're going to create a lot of frustration by spinning your wheels and wondering why it's not working. Another mistake that I see a lot of people make is spreading their payments over so many different things versus being intentional and focusing on one thing at a time. Now, this is twofold. This could mean I'm trying to build my emergency fund. I'm trying to get out of debt. I'm trying to save for my kids' college. I'm trying to save up for a house. I'm trying to save up for retirement. And instead of focusing on one thing at a time, your money is spread all over the place. And you're not feeling like you're making the traction that you want to. So your savings isn't going up, your debt isn't going down. You're sitting at the age of 55 or 65, like, this is what I have to retire on? Seriously? Ugh. And the same concept goes for getting out of debt. When you put $20 towards Target and an extra $50 on your car payment and an extra $25 on Chase credit, what happens is think of your money as a mist. It's your resources. Think of it as a mist from a garden hose. You're covering a lot of ground, but you're not being very effective. Instead, and we're going to talk more about this later, instead, if you focus on one debt at a time and you focus on one goal at a time, like I'm going to focus on getting out of debt, I'm going to pause retirement for now. as the example. Then all of your resources get consolidated into one stream. And then all of a sudden you get to fire hose that one thing, that one debt, that one goal. And then you see the progress and you feel it. Another mistake that I see a lot of people make that actually really hurts them is taking out big withdrawals from their resources to pay off debt. And what I mean by that is they take a chunk out of their 401k to pay off debt. Or perhaps they refinance their house to pay everything off. Or they take out a home equity line of credits, thinking, you know what? I'm going to get the high interest rate stuff paid off, and this will be lower interest, and I won't have as many payments to worry about. I mean, can we all relate to that here? I know, I sure can. And what happens is that doesn't actually solve the problem, that just transfers debt. It doesn't actually pay anything off. It just shifts it around and moves it around. And then the last big mistake that I see people make is not having some savings first before being intentional with their debt-free journey. So I like to recommend people have $1,000 in an emergency fund, because if you blow a tire or your kitchen sink gets clogged or you need an HVAC repair, at least you have something in the bank to pay for that smaller emergency so you don't go further into debt for the small things. So I like to call that the hope fund, because if we're on this journey to become debt free and we're going further and further into debt for the small stuff, we lose hope pretty quickly that we can actually make progress.
So what is one of the best methods to get out of debt?
I'm so glad you asked that. So I love recommending the debt snowball method. Now, there's several methods to do it. The first one that I hear a lot about is the avalanche method, that has to do with the interest rates. So you focus on paying off high interest rate debt first and then work your way down. So you focus on the higher interest rates and then work your way down to the lower interest rates. And the problem with the avalanche method is a lot of the higher interest debt also carries larger balances. So you could be like throwing chunks of money at your debt and not feel like you're making progress because you have all the other debts that are still sitting there not getting paid off. So people lose hope. About 7% of people who do the avalanche method are actually successful with it. The other method that I see, this is more for budgeting, is percentage rules, like the 50, 30, 20% rule, where 50% of your income goes towards needs, 30% goes towards wants, and then 20% goes towards savings and debt. The problem with that is a lot of people, myself included back in the day, had more than 20% of our income going towards debt. So automatically those numbers don't feel realistic. But with the debt snowball, 95% of people who follow through with this are successful. And the way that the debt snowball works is you list out all of your debt from the smallest amount owed to the largest amount owed. We're not focusing on interest rates. We're not focusing on monthly payments, because money is 80% behavior and only 20% head knowledge. And the debt snowball method works with the behavior and the mindset piece. So once you have all of your debts listed from smallest to largest, now bear with me on this one. Some of you might be a little bit like, oh, this is scary. This goes against everything I was told to do. You're going to pay the minimums on everything except the smallest debt. Then everything that you possibly can from your budget. Every pay raise that you get, your friend gives you $20 to go, drop them off at the airport, whatever you possibly can, goes towards that smallest debt, and you fire hose it. And you get that sucker paid off. And you celebrate. Woo, we just paid off a debt. My brain just got a dopamine hit. And your brain is like, ooh, that felt good. Let's do it again. So everything that you were paying on that smaller debt gets stacked on top of or rolled over onto the minimum payment of debt number 2. And then you pay that sucker off, and it's like, woo, awesome, that feels good. Let's do it again. So by the third or fourth debt, like you're knocking out the small ones super fast. Not only does it feel really good, but you're also cleaning up your budget because that's less payments that you have to worry about. I had a client who had like 20 Klarna, Affirm, and Afterpay accounts. And when they got those cleaned up super fast, like they felt such a relief.
I bet. I bet.
Yeah. So I recommend the debt snowball. It's the best method to pay off debt.
Okay.
So what do people do that causes them to go back into debt?
Not having that identity shift and having that intentionality of I never want to be here ever again. I have seen so many people become debt free, pay off all their credit cards, their student loans, everything, and then they go out and finance a car. And then they're stuck with a $400 to $700 car payment. It's like, come on, you did all of that work. Part of this journey that makes it stick, the thing that helps you stay out of debt, is having that super strong why, kind of like what we talked about in the first episode of why do we want to be out of debt? Is it because I believe what the Bible says about debt? I believe that I'm sick and tired of being a slave to the lender. I believe that to be wildly generous for the kingdom of God, I've got to keep all of my income and not give it away for past choices. And then having that internal identity shift of I am debt free. This is the lifestyle that I choose to live. When you take debt off of the table, all of a sudden debt doesn't become an option for you when you have an emergency. And your brain has that creativity to be able to figure out how to solve the problem because our brains choose the path of least resistance. So the way to stay out of debt is to just take it off the table. I encourage people to cut up their credit cards, or if you're not there yet emotionally, that's okay. Stick it in a plastic baggie with water and stick it in the freezer. We did that. We literally froze our credit card. And when
I've heard of that one before.
Right? So when the power went out for 24 hours and my husband's like, oh my gosh, we have to get a generator, blah, blah, blah. We stuck that sucker under the hot water, and that gave us enough time to have the conversation of like, is this really what we want to do? And we didn't end up getting the generator. We didn't end up using the credit card.
Okay.
So you've got to have that internal identity shift of
no more debt.
No more debt. This is not how I choose to live anymore.
Okay.
I think it's also a habit, right? It's breaking the bad habit and establishing a good habit.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Breaking that cycle.
And I do want to say this as well, because sometimes life happens. Sometimes you do have emergency after emergency after emergency, and life just keeps coming at you. If you're on this journey and you truly do desire to become debt free and you're taking the steps and you're building the discipline, but it just seems like it's just the car breaks down and your HVAC system goes out and then your kid gets sick. Like if you do go back into debt, like don't let that mean anything about you.
Mm-hmm.
Don't create guilt and shame just because like stuff happened and it's like you did what you had to do to pay for it. Now we don't want that to be the excuse, so we just like get off the hook easy. But for those who are genuinely and truly like, this is the desire of my heart, but it just keeps happening, like got to take out a loan to fix the HVAC system, or fix the one car that we have. Like don't bury yourself in guilt and shame because of that. Release that. And then step back into your plan of like, okay, this is just going to go back into the debt snowball. So many of my clients, when they start working with me, either have an absolute amazing windfall blessing from God, where it's just like, woo, we paid off $20,000 of debt in like 2 months. Awesome. And sometimes when they do start becoming intentional, the enemy is like, hey, I'm going to poke at you. Is this really what you want to do?
Mm-hmm.
And like, thank God for the accountability and the guidance there to help walk you through it and not take on that emotional shame.
Right.
Am I making sense with this?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good,
Yeah.
good.
Hmm. Okay. What are some strategies for staying out of debt for good? I have another question, Tracy. I use my credit card. I put everything on it because it's all attached to all these things and I pay it off every month on the date.
Mm-hmm.
Is that okay? I don't have any debt, but I guess there's the factor of what if you didn't, right? What if
Mm-hmm.
you didn't and it rolled over,
Yeah, beautiful. Exactly.
right?
So
I just
so
thought of
this
that.
this is a beautiful, beautiful conversation because like a lot of people who do come to me, they're like, oh yeah, I pay off my debt every month. So Janine, you are a magical unicorn that poops rainbows for
Oh,
for paying it off every month.
okay.
The majority of people don't or they're not able to.
Mm,
So here's the question, and it also goes back to what are your beliefs about debt? What
yeah.
do you believe? What is your definition of debt? And
Mm,
what does debt and being in debt mean to you? What does using debt mean to you? So, debt is borrowing from somebody else, no matter what the source is. It could be a credit card, Klarna, a firm, your mom, your best friend, whomever,
yeah.
to pay for a purchase. When you have to use somebody else's money, that
Yeah.
is debt.
Okay.
So, when it comes to using your credit cards, and this is another thing that the financial industry is so good at. They have actually rewired an entire, well, probably Canada too, the nation's brains
Yeah.
to actually feel good to use their product. And their
Hmm.
product is debt because they have these rewards programs and these points programs and
Hmm.
airline miles and all of these things for
Oh, yeah.
using their products. But the thing is when you use cash or you use debit and you use your own money, what
Hmm.
happens is there's that trade-off. There's that I'm handing you my Benjamin for a meal that I put however many hours of blood, sweat, and tears into my job to
Okay.
create.
Hmm.
So there's actually scientific proof that you spend more when you use a
Oh,
credit card because it feels good versus using your own money. And the average is 13 to 18% more per transaction.
wow.
So let's just say that, I don't know, you save, 15, let's do in the middle. Let's just say 15% per transaction. You spend more on a credit card than using your own money,
Right.
debit card or cash.
Hmm.
If you put $2,500 a month on a credit card for your gas, groceries, entertainment, whatever,
Hmm.
you're actually overspending on average by about $350 a month.
Ouch. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. I did not know that.
So if you want to feel like that you've got a pay raise without increasing your paycheck at all,
Hmm.
stop using the credit cards and start using your own money. And this is where having a good budget really can come in to help you not go in the hole, not overspend, and have a plan for your money.
Okay. Well, good to know. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay. So doubling back to, I guess my question again is, so okay, what are some strategies for staying out of debt for good?
Mm-hmm. It goes back to what I said earlier about getting rid of the debt methods. So
Okay.
that looks like this is gonna hurt for some people, but detaching the Amazon credit card from Amazon and unplugging your payment methods from the online shopping because it's so easy to be like, oh, I need blah, 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 blah for the house. And we can justify anything, right? The human brain can justify anything.
Mhm.
But if we take the time to actually go get our debit card and type in the number and make it a pain in the back end, that creates more time and space for a brain to think, do I actually need this?
So good.
The
Yeah.
other thing is if you are dead set on becoming debt free stop using debt. That
Okay.
includes the credit cards, because keeping a credit card around when you're trying to get out of debt is like keeping a beer in the fridge for a recovering alcoholic.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you have any statistics on how many people are in debt and
Mm.
the percentage of the population? And
Mm. As far as actually in debt, I would have to Google that real quick. I know that about 68% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, meaning that if they missed a single paycheck, they would have to rely on debt to pay their bills.
Wow. Yeah.
Mm. And
Even though,
it doesn't seem to matter how much a person's income is either, right? Because it's like
no.
the more
Mhm.
money you make, the more you just spend.
Right.
Yeah. So 40% of Americans who make more than $100,000 a year, who make more than six figures, feel like they live paycheck to paycheck. And
Mhm.
part of that comes from more money doesn't actually solve the problem of feeling stressed about your finances. More money amplifies the mindsets and habits and financial foundations and behaviors that you already have.
Mhm.
So if you're a big spender and you don't track your money at $40,000 a year, that's going to be even more amplified at $100,000 a year.
Right.
If you are wildly generous at $40,000 a year, you're going to be freaking wildly generous at $100,000 a year.
Right. Okay.
All right.
Hmm.
Well, we're getting to the end of our time, and so we usually ask the question, what you would specifically want to say on this subject to single Christian women over 50.
Mm,
And I'll just add to that anything else you'd like to share on this subject.
yeah.
Mhm.
There's no such thing as too much debt to get started. For single Christian women over 50, there is hope. It is not too late. Create the plan, start with the budget, start with that starter $1,000 emergency fund, use the debt snowball, and ask God to abundantly bless you and to show you and surround you with the people and the mentors and the coaches and the friends to encourage you and cheer you on this journey. Because I coach women who are in their 60s and their 70s who have debt, and there's just such a sense of like, oh, I wasted my life, or oh my gosh, why didn't I start this in my 30s or 40s or my 50s or whatever, however, whatever age it is.
Mhm.
But future you of 3 years, 5 years, 10 years from now is going to look back on you of today and say thank you for getting started on this today.
Yeah.
Right.
And the last thing, the people who follow the tools and the methods that I shared with you today get out of debt on average of 18 to 24 months. So in just a year and a half to
Nice.
2 years, picture being debt free
Mhm.
and having all of that income go towards savings, retirement, enjoying life, generosity, whatever you want it to.
Wow. Wow. And I
Mhm.
can see that because momentum motivates, right? You
Mhm.
start to see that momentum and the progress, then you just get more motivated to
Mhm.
Yeah.
pay off your debt and be conscious of how you're spending your money.
Mhm. If you have nothing else to add, Tracy or Ellie, then anything, ladies?
I think we're good.
Okay. Then I just want to thank you for coming on our podcast and sharing with our sisters today. So, can you please tell our listeners how they can connect with you?
Absolutely. So I'm on Facebook under Golden Rose Financial Coaching. And my website is goldenrosefinancialcoaching.com. I'm also on LinkedIn under Tracy Latona. Or if you feel like you would love to have a money strategy session, which is my free gift to you, feel free to call me or text me at 502-665-1127.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you again for coming back, being brave and coming back.
Of
Right.
course. Thank you for the honor. It was so lovely to share today and encourage everyone today.
Okay.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. Please share any thoughts that resonated with you from today's podcast episode in our private Facebook group at Jesus People Sisterhood Community. Start reaching out to other single women and create your local group of Jesus People Sisters. Please let us know about your group to add to our directory by contacting us at support@jesuspeoplesisterhood.com.
Have you had a good experience with a business? They've treated you honestly and helped you at a reasonable price? Please let us know. We would like to start a directory of JPS-friendly businesses. Let's care for one another.
Be blessed by Him who is able to protect you from stumbling and to make you stand in the presence of His glory, blameless and with great joy. Until next time.
Hey, sister, before you go, thank you for listening. If you found value in today's podcast, the best way to say thank you is by leaving a 5-star written review at Apple Podcasts. That raises us in the rankings and helps other sisters find us too. And please tell a friend or post it on your social media. If you're a single Christian woman over 50, this podcast was created specifically for you. The Jesus People Sisterhood is your community to find support and friendship with other sisters who can understand. Be sure to follow us on your podcast app and join our free private Facebook group at Jesus People Sisterhood Community.
Jesus People Sisterhood has also started a private Facebook group for housing and co-living opportunities. You can check that out at Jesus People Sisterhood Senior Housing. You can also find us on Facebook at Jesus People Sisterhood and individually for Janine at riseupcoachingandconsulting.com and for Ellie at samaramountain.com. And ladies, this is the necessary disclaimer. Our podcast content is for informational purposes and does not constitute professional advice from mental health, medical, legal, financial, or other areas. The opinions of the guest do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the host. It is our heart that this podcast will be a blessing to you. Together, let's build a powerful sisterhood with Jesus. Make a friend, add a sister, across the border and around the world.